What's up, everyone? Welcome to Akuma's Arsenal, and today we are discussing Dan Henry. So I actually got it wasn't a comment, it was a message from, I can't remember your name, but I really do appreciate for you sending the message and telling me to check out Dan Henry. And he just was asking, like, what are my general thoughts about them, right? So my only experience with Dan Henry I've never handled a watch. So that, to me, instantly, I'm not here to talk about their watches in particular, right? I've never handled them. I don't know anything about their watches. A lot of you guys have. For example, Aaron Dunlap has I think 1960. I think it was the 1963 chronograph that I saw. I think Aaron has one. So if you guys want, check out Aaron's video, and he actually has a more of a better understanding of what the actual watches are like. But in general, they're heavily inspired by vintage watches, and basically it's turning the vintage aesthetic into something more of a modern kind of watch. Probably the robustness, the size, things like that. I'm not exactly for sure how robust they are. But what are my thoughts on Dan Henry? Well, I think they are very, very good at marketing. Definitely really good at marketing. You can really get a sense of what their vision is and what they're trying to do, and I respect what they're trying to do. I think they're going to be very, very successful, and I'm pretty sure they already have been. However, I do have some things that I do have some reasons why I would never purchase Dan Henry, right? Well, they're inspired by vintage watches, right? Vintage watches is something that I'm learning a lot more about. I'm trying to do more research on. I have 2 vintage pieces in my collection, but I'm starting to really do a deep dive into vintage and start to understand the wonderful history and just that watchmaking, all the amazing things that have happened in the history of watchmaking. I feel like Dan Henry, if you buy Dan Henry, I feel like you're kind of circumventing that. You're kind of cheating yourself out of understanding the rich heritage of horology. I'm not, obviously you guys know, I'm not the snootiest guy out here. I don't buy very expensive watches. The vintage watches I get, I've either been given to me by a family member, or I've bought and it's under $50. But even in those situations, you can find so many amazing watches and timepieces for under $50 that are vintage. It's mind-boggling. And I'm looking at a lot of the aesthetics of the Dan Henry watches, and they're kind of like mainstream Swiss watches for that time period. I'm not an expert. Feel free to disagree with me. These are just my thoughts and opinions. Just opinions. So what makes mine so credible? They're very, very inspired by mainstream Swiss watches at that time period. So you're not gonna get to experience, because if you buy Dan Henry, to me it's just like a cheat to not getting something truly vintage. With that $250 that you could have gotten a Dan Henry, and trust me, I'm sure they're good watches. I feel like you could have taken the time and research to actually find a nice quality vintage watch for $250. For example, you can get an Omega Seamaster dress watch, or even some of their old models for like $300. You can find mechanical Soviet chronographs for $300. You can find vintage divers from Swiss to Japanese, maybe not Japanese, maybe even Japanese, Soviet, all kinds of dive watches for even under $50. I really do. I think what Dan Henry is doing is a great business choice and a business decision. And I understand he has a huge passion for vintage watches. But if you have such a huge passion for vintage watches, don't you want to share the knowledge that they can experience a true vintage watch? On the other hand, though, vintage watches are small. Very, very, very small. I'm a smaller guy. I'm biased because I can wear vintage watches. They work with my size. However, Some of the Dan Henrys come in 41, 44 millimeters. You know, so I could definitely see that. You can't really find watches from the 1940s that are 41 millimeters. That's absolutely like, that's really rare. So I understand that appeal because it kind of modernizes a vintage watch. However, you're not getting the full experience of a vintage timepiece. If you really want to experience a vintage timepiece, but you don't have the time to do all your research, check out Theo and Harris, right? Theo and Harris, they provide amazing watches from kind of mid-range luxury pieces, right? From Tudor to Rolex to Omega to this to that to this to that, and they go low. They have stuff on there for $500, and you know that they're good watches. You can even ask me. You can hit me up and be like, you know, hey man, I have $50. Well, at least now, since I'm a lot smaller, but you know, if I keep on growing, which I think I will, it's going to be harder to do that, right? So I'll try to figure out what are the most common questions and how can I address them. But even now, you can shoot me an email and be like, yo, I'm really trying to find a vintage watch. Like, what's your price range? You know, like tell me your price range, and we can kind of figure it out. Because if you give me your price range and what you want, I can do a deep dive and just learn even more about watches. And that's, to me, the funnest part about being a watch collector is the learning process. And if you buy a Dan Henry, I kind of feel like it's a little bit like cheating. Yeah, those are my thoughts. If you're thinking about picking up a Dan Henry watch, go ahead. Just do your research. If the watch is what you want, go ahead and do it. These are my thoughts about Dan Henry as not their company, but more of like their vision and what it kind of means to the average consumer. I think Dan Henry is doing a really cool thing at what they do. I mean, no ill harm to Dan Henry. I want to make that clear. I just don't. Me as a consumer, I'd rather do the deep dive and understand more about the hobby that I love. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Feel free to leave me your responses about what I think or what you guys think about Dan Henry in the comments below. Keep it respectful, please, and which I know you guys will. Okuma out.